They're seriously growing like crazy. And there's over 20 varieties of vegetables in this little space right here alone. Guten Yardening, everybody! In just a few weeks from the time we transformed this front area into yarden space, we are now in full swing with a fall garden here. And I gotta tell you, it is really rewarding to see the transition and how quickly this area has transitioned. So we're gonna walk you through a little tour of our front garden right now and help you to understand some of the decisions we made and where we stand in terms of what we've planted and still have to go. The first thing that you should notice is our mums are looking beautiful. So when we planted these, you buy mums this time of year and they're not necessarily going to be fully blooming. In fact, I'd say this purple one over here is pretty close to what you can sort of expect when you buy from the store. This one was about half opened when we brought it home, and it's not going to stay blooming for that long, but it is opened up quite nicely. Although this one has browned a little bit. You see some of these pieces have browned a little bit, and I think some of that may be due to a lot of excessive rain that we have recently. But one of the coolest things about a few of these mums, and you can see it right here, this is a white mum with a little yellow inside, and it's turning a different color. It's turning purplish pink. And I looked this up because initially I thought, what could possibly be causing this? Because it's happening actually to a lot of our mums. Our yellow one here, our yellowish orange one, has also got that tinge. And I wondered if this could be being caused by some sort of random cross-pollination with the purple mums. But when I researched this, I found that when the temperatures start to drop below a certain point, around 50 or so degrees, which we've had a couple days now, where the temperatures drop that low, then there's a pigment in some of these petals that starts to get activated, and it actually changes color. I had no idea, and if my research is wrong and you know something different, I'd love to hear. But I think that's just really cool. I had never seen it before. Of course, we've never really done too much with mums in the past, but I think that's amazing. So all of these mums, they're not really the hardiest of mums, so they're not going to survive our winters, or at least they wouldn't survive it very well. I mean, there's a chance that they could come back. We did that a couple years ago with a few that we planted. They came back, but they just didn't really fill out. So in between each one of these mums, we have our perennials planted. And our perennials are all pollinators of some sort. This is a coreopsis. The coreopsis grows maybe about, I would say, another 6 or 8 inches tall. It will be when it's all fully formed here. And it has these beautiful yellow flowers that bees go crazy for. So that's our coreopsis. This is our veronica. You can actually see the bees love the veronica, even though this one is looking pretty poor right now, but that's again because we purchased it late, we planted it late, so it's not really going to flower that much now. But next year, once we cut it back, like we do with our perennials, once we cut it back, it is going to be a completely different plant. And again, you can already see the bees love it. And that's what we want to achieve here in the front. We want to achieve a place where the pollinators are attracted and regularly show up. We also bought several different varieties of irises. And I don't remember the color of this one, but this is about an 18-inch tall, or it's going to be about 18 inches tall at full height. And the one just a little ways over here is a yellow and brown iris. It gets to be about 2 feet tall. It's a hybrid iris. I kept the label with that one, but it spreads out a little bit more. But from the pictures, when we looked at which ones we were going to buy, this yellow and brown one is going to be just really pretty and really attract the bees. And here we have a plant that looks like peppermint. And the reason it looks like peppermint, so I get that to focus, is because this is Nepeta, and Nepeta is actually a part of the peppermint family. So if I smell the leaf, it's got that nice peppermint smell. But this one has a little flower to it. This one in this case is a little purple flower. It's not on there yet. Let's see, we can see a little bit of what might be there in the future. But this Nepeta, unlike regular peppermint, is not invasive. It's not going to spread. It's going to get about 18 to 24 inches tall. But again, this is another one of those plants that has a nice aroma to it, and the bees love it. We have another one right down the way here, similar or same variety, but looking a little rough for the wear. Again, I think some of this is due to the fact that we've had some massive amounts of rain recently. This one's browned up a little bit. They're definitely not drying out. That's not what's happening here. And I'm not overly worried about this plant in particular, because again, these perennials, we bought them late season, we planted them late season. So it's more about cutting them down here once the colder weather comes around, covering them up with a nice layer of mulch to keep them over the winter. And then next spring, we're going to have some magnificent plants. The last plants we have out front here are some celosia, which is absolutely breathtaking. Look at the color of the leaves right now. They've really changed from that green to a reddish color. Unfortunately, this is an annual. This is a plant that I really wish was a perennial. You can just see how beautiful it is. I don't know that the lighting here is doing it justice, the bright purples and reds. And then next door, some chives. And the bees love the chives as well. So we figured we would plant some around here. It's got that nice oniony smell to it. And it's pretty as well. So that's just along the exterior of this new yarden space. We've tried to come up with a way, again, to create a boundary between the sidewalk and our yarden, but also to create, or use, I should say, flowers that are going to bring in the bees, keep the pollinators around, so that our front yard and space is pollinated when we need it for whatever we plant here, whatever we decide to plant here. And one of the other decisions we made, and you saw this if you watched our design video where we talked about the layout, we made 7 different beds, 7 individual beds here instead of going with 1 or 2 larger beds. And the real reason we did that, yes, it's the ease of getting in here, because again, the pathways that we created with the ash mulch are really easy to walk around in. I can move bed to bed with no problem at all. But there's also the fact that now if we have a plant here that's a heavy nitrogen feeder or requires a certain type of amending to our soil, we can amend easily bed by bed rather than having to go through this and amend everything the same way. So it's much easier to separate what we're amending. Now that being said, the initial amendment to this was just a general amendment. So we did fix the soil, I guess you could say, all the same way initially. But as we go farther down the road with what we're putting in here, and as certain brassicas, for example, pull out nutrients in the soil and we need to replace those nutrients, we'll do it differently depending on what our soil requires. So I'm going to show you everything that we have in our beds right now. And I should tell you before I do that, that everything in here was directly sown or transplanted from seeds that we sowed, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, except for a few of the kale and a few of the kohlrabi in this bed. These we got from a local merchant, but other than that, everything else is from seed that we planted. I think I picked the windiest day of the year to come out here, so I apologize for the excess wind, but we got to work with it. It rained all night last night, and the wind hasn't stopped since. So in this first bed, we have something we planted about a week and a half ago. These are the Easter basket radishes. The Easter basket radishes are from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. And we'll show you a picture of what that seed bag looks like right here. Earlier this season, so when the earliest crop that we sowed was actually the Easter basket radishes, and I can show you another picture of what our harvest looked like then when we pulled them up. Oh, I would say 3 months ago. They were so delicious and very plentiful. So these are coming up as one of those really quick crops to grow in the fall. There's still time. We're in zone 5 and these are growing. We could probably plant some more if we have space. before the time comes. So these are Easter basket radishes. If we get down here, you can see we're already seeing some development. Try not to disturb them too much. We're already seeing some development down below. So these have another few weeks before they're ready, but they're gonna be delicious. Our second bed here is actually 3 different colors and varieties of cauliflower. These cauliflower we planted directly as seeds, and these are some of the plants that were absolutely coming along nicely. We started them off inside, we brought them outside to the porch to harden them off, and I would say a day before we were ready to put them in the ground, the cabbage moths came to town and just started eating them up. And you can see some of the damage still on them from those cabbage moths. So we planted them anyway. I think there may have been 1 or 2 that was a little too far gone to recover, but these are starting to take off a little bit more. I'm going to show you again a picture of what these are going to look like once they actually grow up a little bit more here. These are beautiful varieties, none of which we grew before. But again, you can see some of the damage there. But I think with the cooler temperatures, I think with the fact that we're taking really good care, keeping a close eye on them now, we're searching over them to make sure there aren't any cabbage moth eggs, so there aren't any worms or anything on here. I think we're gonna be okay with these. They're gonna make a little comeback. In our third bed here, we have something really cool. So this is our first time growing the daikon radishes. So we have those all along the top of this mound. And then we're actually growing turnips along both sides as well. But one of the benefits of having this mounded up, because it's probably a good 7 or 8 inches above the height of the paths here, one of the benefits is if we're growing daikon radishes, which can grow up to 10 inches long, they have plenty of room to grow down. The soil is nice and loose, there's good drainage, and so they shouldn't have any problem really getting to a maximum depth as they're growing along here. And these are looking super healthy. There's a little bit, you can see a little bit of bug damage right now, but beyond that, these were planted, again, about a week and a half ago. It's so amazing to watch how quickly some of these vegetables grow. And again, it's really encouraging when you're starting a new garden spot to see that growth come in, not just quickly, but looking so nice. In our fourth bed, we have a grouping of 3 different varieties of beets. Beets are one of those vegetables, those root crops, I guess, that are, in my opinion, really underrated. The taste of beets, when we just steam them up, it's so good, and they're healthy for you. I've read that they help a lot with blood pressure, regulating blood pressure. Actually, if you noticed how neat these rows and columns are, that's because we've used our planting square for these. And again, we're still trying to give away our planting square. Our video's halfway to 1,000 views. If you haven't checked it out, our Urban Homestead Dream video, go give it a watch, leave a comment, you'll be entered in to win. The square is in our possession. It arrived last week to our house. But these beets are, again, another example of plants that grow quickly, and we planted a few in each area, so we're going to transplant these apart. There are 4 right here. We're going to transplant these apart. That's one of the reasons why we left room on the sides, so we can transplant these beets here shortly. Off to the side, we'll spread them out. We will have an entire bed here covered with these beets. I'm excited for that. All right, in our 5th bed, we are growing some really nice broccoli. This is called Pac-Man broccoli, and it's a 50-day variety. I misspoke earlier because these are actually seedlings that we transplanted as well. These 4 plants right here, these 4 broccoli. So this broccoli is looking nice and healthy. They seem to enjoy the soil very much. And this is another example of some plants that have, oh, you can see them right here. They have a little bit of some eggs on here on the back. Let's see how close I can get. And so we're gonna come through I'm going to gently remove these. If we leave them one there, these will be eaten up in no time. Well, I tell you, the cabbage moths have been in town with a vengeance this year. And I realized, I was sitting there thinking to myself, why had we never really seen it so much, seen these moths so much around? And then of course I realized, well, we never really planted this many brassicas before, and they are called cabbage moths for a reason. I've seen this a few times. I'm not sure exactly what this is, like a cocoon of sorts, or an egg sac of sorts. I'm not sure what that is, but we're going to take it off. We're going to take that off anyway. Here we have, these are kohlrabi. We have a mixture. This is a giant kohlrabi, red kohlrabi, and a white kohlrabi. And these are paired up in twos, it looks like. So we may have to thin these out as well, just transplant them again, separate them a little bit. We're actually growing in our 6th bed more kohlrabi back here. Again, the more varieties we grow, the better chance we have to see which ones perform the best in our soil. And so we want to open up the door to as much kohlrabi as possible because we love it so much, and we've really enjoyed experimenting with kohlrabi this year in ways that we haven't been able to in the past. This is our first season. Oh, here we go. You can see how quickly they eat. There you go. And they grow so quickly as well. So we got to get these off. We're going to keep a close eye on them because we don't want to lose our crops to these little critters. Here's some stonehead cabbage. This is a 65-day variety cabbage. And we have some chard here as well. We're growing chard in different places all around our garden. And I've looking at how people handle their chard or grow their chard, or why they grow it, I should say. I know a lot of people eat it fresh in salads, but our preferred method for chard is actually just to steam it. And I say that it kind of has that smell of fresh hay, or like baled hay, whenever you steam chard, and it's delicious. So we have more of this planted elsewhere as well. All right, our 7th bed, our longest bed, and the last bed out here is the bed that we've filled with seedlings that we purchased elsewhere. So these are our Vienna, our white kohlrabi that we bought elsewhere. They're looking nice and strong now. When we first got them, they were suffering from dehydration. They had some serious wilt to them, but they perked up really nicely. Once they got in the ground, we started watering them. And we have a few different types of kale, some reddish kale, some prism kale. We love our kale here. Here's some lacinato or dino kale. We eat kale, again, every single day. If you've watched any of our videos on breakfast smoothies, you would know that we make breakfast smoothies every single day. And those smoothies come right from the kale, the celery, the spinach that we grow in our garden out back. And here we have some more kohlrabi. This is the Cossack kohlrabi. It's a 70-day variety, and this is supposed to be one of the bigger varieties. Again, when it comes to kohlrabi, we haven't had that much experience outside of the white kohlrabi to know whether or not these are going to be more woody. But I've heard that the varieties that are supposed to get bigger don't have that woody taste as they do grow. And here's some cauliflower. This is snow crown cauliflower. This year we've grown some cauliflower. We've struggled a little bit with cauliflower, getting some of that black mildew, even though we've covered up. Just getting another worm off here. Even though we've covered up the crowns once they started to form. It also looks like in our soil right now, this is probably from the fact that we've mixed the soil with the native soil, we're getting what looks to be some purslane to me. And I know it's edible. We still haven't tried it yet. Maybe that's something for the future. We'll try our purslane as well. I would describe this front yard and space as being full of potential. And now we're starting to see some of that potential come out. It's getting more and more exciting. Our first frost date is about a month and a half away. So it's not like there's a ton of time here, but these are all cool weather vegetables. And so as long as we don't have a really deep frost, I'm not overly concerned. I think they'll manage okay early on. So these are pretty hardy vegetables that we're growing here. And, you know, besides the radishes, the turnips, the daikon radishes, the Easter radishes, they'll all be fully developed and ready to be pulled out by that time anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this front garden tour. Again, 130 square feet can produce an awful lot of vegetables, and we have a lot going on here, but it's all purposeful. It's all planned out with the end date and end goal of even more productivity in mind. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give us a like, leave us a comment, and let us know. Be sure to share and subscribe. And as always, when you're with us, you are good to grow.